For Pokemon Day 2024, Pokemon announced Pokemon Legends Z through A. And I think this one threw everyone off. A lot of people were expecting black and white remakes or maybe even Johto remakes. You know, it could be Let's Go style, it could be Legend style, which we did get, but just not the generation people thought. People speculated about what Pokemon Day's announcement would be a lot. Like, this was very highly anticipated. And I think a big reason for that is the recent troubled history of remakes in general, and a blossoming confusion on what a remake was for Pokemon and what it could be. With vastly different takes on a Pokemon remake for the generation of Let's Go, BDSP, and Legends Arceus, fans had really no idea what to expect next. Because of all this hype and controversy, I find it really important to go back and look at the history of Pokemon remakes and see what really makes them. What is a Pokemon remake, and how did they evolve over time to what they've become now? Remakes started with Firered and LeafGreen. These games gave us Gen 1 with updated graphics, new sprites, new mechanics, quality of life improvements, everything you could imagine. And this was a very, very welcome change, as you could play through Generation 1 now without psychic types being completely broken. All jokes aside, the game was much more balanced, Pokemon movesets were a lot more varied and interesting. All the Pokemon have abilities now, and even Steel and Dark type, 2 whole new types, were introduced. And of course, we got a ton of new content with the Sevi Islands. And even though that is quite a lot, these were mostly still the same game. However, remakes evolved to become much more with Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Of course, we got the new moves, new graphics, quality of life kind of stuff, but there was much more to it than that. Biggest of all was the Pokemon following feature, which was very widely regarded as the best addition for a remake. And then we got one of the best sets of minigames with the Pokeathlon. Nearly all the Pokemon up to Gen 4 were available, including some of the new evolutions being accessible during the main story, and not just the post-game. Last but not least, the Pokewalker pack-in, which was a novelty, but still new content. And then, with Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Pokemon Remakes became so much more than anybody ever thought they could be. These games brought an entire region into 3D, which on its own would be spectacular. But these games wove in the lore of Mega Evolutions on top of that. And they created so many brand new Megas for Hoenn Pokemon, including the starters. And then we got new forms of the box art legends with Kyogre and Groudon now having Primal Reversion. We got a cinematic post-game story with the Delta episode that introduced new character Zinnia and even expanded upon Rayquaza's story with its brand new, really cool Mega Evolution. Plus we got a deeper look at the evil teams with new personalities and designs for the admin and bosses. There were overhauls for some of the in-game areas like Mauville, and of course the undeniably coolest way to fast travel in all of Pokemon, soaring in the sky. All of this while having the same quality of life improvements like now having Fairy type and the physical special split. I could go on and on, but this was the epitome of what a Pokemon remake could be. And then we got this. A faithful remake. There were no lore tie-ins with Gigantamax and Dynamax, no new characters, not even new minigames. And more than any of that, not even a way to easily access Pokemon that were available in Pokemon Platinum over a decade ago. The only redeeming quality of these games were the Pokemon hideaways underground, which let you catch Pokemon that you wouldn't really normally get to catch. But still, that's just not much. And sure, I guess the game is 3D and the graphics are technically better, but not everyone likes the chibi style. I know some people do. But isn't the point of a remake to give a refreshing new perspective on the game? This is just way too faithful. And I think that's why Pokemon Legends Arceus felt so good to play. It was a very new experience for something that still felt familiar. Think of the nostalgic and calming music of Eterna Forest, coupled with this lush forest where in the overworld you can see the Pokemon and interact with them. It creates an entirely new feeling of playing a Pokemon game. It's comforting and familiar, but with this sense of exploration as well. Not to mention the fact that this is still a brand new game. There's a new story, new characters, new forms. There's a cool art style, a nearly open world. And on top of all that, a new catching and battling mechanic. Like, this is Pokemon like we've never seen it before. The flip side of this is that we didn't get a Sinnoh remake that was a remake as we knew it. Where previous games gave us the same game in a really fresh new way, instead we got a completely faithful remake that was almost entirely the same game, and then we got a game that was almost entirely its own thing, just a brand new game. Oh yeah, and then there's Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which I don't want to talk too much on because I didn't really play it that much. I just wasn't really a fan of the Go style catching mechanic, and it just feels like Kanto has been done so many times now that it just doesn't really hold my interest anymore. But that's not necessarily the game's fault itself. And that's why I think it's been so difficult to anticipate what kind of Pokemon remake we were going to get. It's totally possible that we just got the same game, just rehashed into 3D like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, or a really improved upon version of the game with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, or a brand new world to explore that still feels like home, like we got with Legends Arceus, and hopefully, like we're getting with Pokemon Legends Z. The biggest implication of a new Legends game existence is that it's, a new Legends game. This wasn't just a one-off thing, this is going to be a series. From now on, we can expect to get storylines from old games further expanded upon, and some new stories as well. Well, in Pokemon Z's case, it's probably going to be a little bit more like finished than expanded upon. And we'll get to see the regions in a fresh new way. Lastly, I want to point out that Mega Evolutions are coming back, which is the ultimate fan service. This is the one thing that fans have constantly begged for, and it just never seemed possible, since they move on to a new gimmick every generation. But, somehow, here we are. And we'll almost definitely be getting new Mega forms. On top of that, it's still a whole year before the game releases. So it seems like the Pokemon Company has answered two big things that fans have asked for: longer development time, and Megas. I'm not saying this level of fan service is on purpose, but I like to think it is. And I like to think that the future of Pokemon remakes is really, really bright. Also, the Pokemon Day Presents had a ton of Johto content in it, so I still think we're due for 3D Johto games. And for no particular reason, I still think Unova remakes are on the horizon, but it might be a little bit more of a faithful remake situation. Who knows? Those games could tie in with Terrestrialization or whatever the new mainline gimmick is, or it could be Megas. I just hope it's something to expand upon the base games. All in all, if the announcement of Pokemon Legends Z is any indication, whatever we get next, I think the Pokemon Company has our back. Thank you all for watching, make sure to like and subscribe for more.